What's up guys, you're watching Life TCG. Got a quick modern deck profile for you today. This is on the Lotus Breach deck. So the reason why I'm doing a video on this is because I just got an RC invite with it, playing in a paper RCQ locally back in Auckland now. I've moved back to New Zealand from Singapore. So I'll just quickly talk about the list and do a brief tournament report. So I've actually qualified for, like, I guess this is the 5th RCQ coming up now, and I qualified for the first 2 playing this deck as well. So I've played this deck in Modern a lot in the past year or 2, and I've got some pretty decent results with it. So how the deck works is you're basically trying to assemble the combo of having Lotus Field in play. You cast Underworld Breach while you have access to Tome Scour plus an untap effect, so either Dream's Grip or Twiddle. So when you escape Dream's Grip, you gain 2 mana effectively because you're untapping Lotus Field, and you use that 2 mana to escape Tome Scour twice. So escaping Tome Scour twice puts 10 cards in your graveyard, and escaping Tome Scour twice and Dream's Grip once requires you to exile 9 cards. Through Underworld Breach, every time you escape you have to exile 3 cards. So every time you execute that loop, you're putting 1 extra card in your graveyard, you're netting 1 card. So it's a deterministic loop basically, you just keep milling over your whole deck. And then at the end you use your few surplus cards to untap again, gain a few extra mana, and then you escape Wish from your graveyard and cast Thassa's Oracle when you have no cards in your library, and that wins you the game. So that's basically it. Apart from those key combo pieces, you have like cantrips to help you dig towards it. So you have Mishra's Bauble, which in combination with fetch lands give you some control over what cards you draw off it. Also with Otherworldly Gaze as well, letting you look at your top card. And it also basically just cycles for no mana, so you're putting more cards in your graveyard over the course of the game to help set up the escape loop. In the other cantrips you have the Consider, Otherworldly Gaze. Preordain of course was unbanned recently, it's a very big addition to this deck. When I was winning with this deck before, Preordain wasn't legal, you had to play like Street Wraith, or I'd tested other random cards before too, like Amulet of Vigor, stuff like that. But of course Preordain is just a great cantrip for a combo deck. Scry 2, draw card. Yep, basically exactly what you want. And then Wishclaw Talisman is not really a cantrip, it's just a tutor, but that's great for the deck as well. Some people have played Profane Tutor in the past, but I really don't like that card. It's a bit slower than Wishclaw, like you can't go off on turn 3. It's really bad against like Teferi, and with Wishclaw you have the combo where you can untap it with Twiddle, and I also won games by escaping it with Underworld Breach, which you can't do with Profane Tutor either. So all of those things are reasons why Wishclaw is great. And then Wish is another card that's like a tutor. Some people don't play this card, they play like 4 Wishclaws and then they might play like 1 Grim Tutor or something in the main deck. So the nice thing about Wish, firstly it lets you like assemble the full combo with only 1 card, as long as you have a ton of mana, because you can Wish for Underworld Breach, play Underworld Breach, escape the Twiddles for generating more mana again, then you escape the wish, and then you get the Tome Scour from your sideboard. So that lets you do the full combo just by having wish and twiddles. So that's really good. Just having extra tutors for the Tome Scour to help you combo is good. So you have like 7. You have the wish, the claw plus the wish itself as a way to access Tome Scour when you need it. That's good. And then also like it gives you outs to like you can Mind Collapse like a Douthie Voidwalker, or you can wish for Engineered Explosives to kill like a Chalice of the Void, which is like quite a flexible card. I think it's really good. Other people playing this deck, they don't play the wish. Either they think it's too slow or what, but this is always the version I've played. I've briefly tried other lists, and this is just like the shell that I think is the best. And then the last few cards are just like disruption. So one Pact of Negation, it's nice to have it as like a Wishclaw target in the main deck. Also when you mill your whole deck, when you're comboing, you leave the Pact of Negation in your graveyard. Then if your opponent tries to like Solitude your Thassa's Oracle or something, if you have a card left in your library, you can 0 mana Pact their removal. So yeah, one Pact of Negation main deck is great to have. Then other disruption, we have this 3 Spell Pierce, 1 Inquisition of Kozilek. This split is a bit weird. I like went lower on Inquisitions because before I played like 2 and 2 or even like all Inquisitions in the past in different formats. Because you have 4 Preordain in the deck now instead of like Street Wraith, you have a lot more density of sorceries you want to play on turn 1. So clogging the deck with a ton of Inquisitions made slightly less sense. And Spell Pierce I just think is a slightly better card in the metagame right now. I still like having 1 Inquisition, just maybe you like Wishclaw for it to discard their Endurance or something before you combo off. I mean, you could do Pact with that anyway. Or like you can flashback it to grind out their hand on a breach turn or something. And there are matchups where like Spell Pierce isn't really that good and you don't want your hand clogged with a ton of Spell Pierces, so like the 3-1 split feels fine. And then the Void Snare just to out any random permanent. It's nice to have this answer in your main deck to Wishclaw for it. That's basically it. All of the rest of the deck is just mana. Some people play like a Otawara, and I've played that in the deck for a while in the past, and I just never found myself ever using it. So this mana base I think is pretty solid. In terms of the sideboard, once you have the main deck built like this with the Wish, you have to play like the Breach in your sideboard, your Wincon in your sideboard, and your Tome Scour in your sideboard. That's basically mandatory. In the past, I've played Grape Shot as a Wincon, but since the Wandering was printed, like you don't want to be in a spot where you can't win the game that turn because your opponent has protection from the ring. So you basically have to play Thassa's Oracle now, which is fine. Like it's not really any harder to win with. Then for Leyline versus like Burn and Scam, more Pact of Negations versus other counterspell decks. Just extra removal for like Rhinos or Chalice of the Void. It's nice to have Echoing Truth. EE just is like a nice catch-all removal, and it's good to have it in game 1 to wish for it to kill Chalices and stuff. Aeve just to have a backup win condition. Like Surgical Extraction is not as a popular card in Modern as it is in Legacy, but like mill decks play it, things like that. So like just having another Wincon that you can sometimes you can wish for it in weird situations, but sometimes it's nice to just be able to board this in as a hedge in case your opponent like extracts your wishes, or you need to combo in a way where you like Wishclaw Tutor for this to play around Graveyard Hate or something. Then the one card that people always ask about is Brooding Saurian. So what it does at the beginning of each end step, each player gains control of all permanents that they own. So the reason why this is in the deck is because it combos with Wishclaw. like you activate the Wishclaw searching for this, and then you cast this and it takes your Wishclaw back. So you get more tutors with your Wishclaw activations on subsequent turns when your opponent can't use it at all. And then like you can use the first Wishclaw to just search for another Wishclaw, and you just build up a hand of like counterspell protection or whatever, and then you eventually find your combo pieces and combo off. So that plan seems really weird, but it's mostly only versus decks like other combo decks like Living End, for example, where like they don't really have an easy time killing this, which means that you can pretty much win without even really like pushing for the combo. You can just Wishclaw for this guy, and then use your Wishclaws to like stock up your hand with spell pierces and discards and stuff, while you just beat down with your 4/4. Because you don't want to be trying this plan against matchups where they can blow up your Brooding Saurian, especially at instant speed. So like, it's good versus combo, it's good versus Living End, which I guess is kind of a combo deck anyway. Like, it's good versus Temur Rhinos, I think, because that's not really easy for them to kill this. Like, your opponent's not going to have Dismember or whatever in their deck game 2 and 3 after sideboarding. Versus 4-color Rhinos, this becomes worse because they have Leyline bindings, so remove it at instant speed. But like versus Temur Rhinos, I think it's good. Like versus Scam, it's probably bad because like Fury just kills it, things like that. So this is how you have to sort of evaluate that card. And if you think those decks that it's good against are like not very present in the metagame, then you can cut this card, but like it gives you a pretty powerful angle of attack in those matchups, so I think it's fine to have it available as a one-off. So yeah, that's pretty much the entire list. In terms of the tournament itself, so round 1 I played against like some kind of Bant mid-rangey kind of deck. Like it played Endurance, Solitude, Brazen Borrower, like they had Meddling Mage in their sideboard. Just, you know, like a sort of mid-rangey creature deck. Game 1 I beat it like without too much trouble. Game 2 they had like a double Meddling Mage hand and I couldn't get out of both of them. And then game 3 I think they only managed to have one Meddling Mage and I was able to deal with it and combo off. Next round I just played against Hardened Scales. Game 1 I basically comboed off no problem. Game 2 they played Damping Sphere, and I had like double Wishclaw in play, and the next turn they were gonna get their Urza Saga up to 3 counters. So I was like thinking of how I can untap, use both of my Wishclaws to like search for a bounce spell for the Damping Sphere, and then like play Lotus Field, use the other Wishclaw and like combo off somehow. But in the end I just like untapped and drew my card and I top decked the Void Snare for the Damping Sphere anyway. So then like from that point with double claw available it was super easy to win. So that was 2-0 versus Hardened Scales. In the third round I've just played against Temur Rhinos. Yeah, again it was like a pretty straightforward matchup. There was like one game when I thought I punted where like I miscounted my mana, so like I floated my mana and played Lotus Field, and then I realized I didn't actually have enough mana to combo off that turn, which means that like I exposed my Lotus Field to a Blood Moon basically. If my opponent untapped and played Moon, there was nothing I could do about it and I basically lose on the spot, because then I untapped with like one colorless land basically and nothing else to do. So it was lucky that my opponent just didn't have it. And then in one of the games that I comboed off, like they like borrowed my Underworld Breach, but I had enough mana to replay it again, so I replayed it again. Then they like Force of Vigored it, and then I had a Pierce, and then like I had no more interaction left after that, and then I just comboed off. So yeah, I think Rug Rhinos is like not a bad matchup at all. then after that I was 3-0, right, and this event was only 5 rounds, so I just double ID'd round 4 and 5, which I think was against Scam and Living In, which are probably like not favourable matchups for this deck, so that was a convenient way to end the Swiss portion of the tournament. Then in the top 8 I played against Rug Murktide in the quarterfinals, so that's like basically Murktide splashing for Questing Druid, which I think is quite cool. Like, I like that deck. I think game 1 I beat it without too much difficulty. Like, game 2 I don't think my opponent interacted with me too much, or like they just had a sort of like decent amount of interaction, and my hand just didn't pan out very well. And then I think it was in game 3 there was a spot where like it was a really complicated turn, and there was a point where I cast Twiddle and my only mana floating was like red and black. So at that point, if they countered it with like the Flusterstorm that they had, then I just basically have to pass the turn, let my Underworld Breach die, and attempt the combo again the next turn with my Spear Underworld Breach in my hand. But because I like casting so many spells, it's very hard for the opponent to figure out like where's the key point to interact. And because you usually play like so many Twiddles, it doesn't really feel like that's the critical card. So they just let it resolve, and by that, like that, let me untap and generate enough blue mana that I could sort of play around anything else that they have from that point anyway. So yeah, that was 2-1 win versus Murktide deck. So that puts me into the quarterfinals, where playing against Scam, semi-finals, playing against Scam. Game 1, I'm on the play because I was second after Swiss, so I get to choose to go first all through the top 8. So my opponent played Darthy Voidwalker on turn 2, so I untap on my turn 3 and I wish for Mind Collapse to kill it, and then their third turn they don't have any more like hate piece or what interaction for me, so that lets me untap and combo and kill them. So that was good, but like game 2 and 3 is so hard because they have just way too much stuff you have to deal with. I think they like Scam Fury turn 1. In game 2 or something, because like I mean it's just so hard. So this sort of like dovetails into like talking about this deck's position in the metagame. Like, it's pretty well established that Scam is like the de facto best deck right now, and it's this deck's matchup against it is like really, really abysmal. Like, you can't win through a Blood Moon and play with this deck. You can't win through a Darthy Voidwalker and play with this deck. If your opponent like Scam griefs you and discards your 2 key cards, like you can win from there, but it's a really uphill battle. Usually those decks have even more stuff in your sideboard that's really hard for you to beat as well. Like, my opponent in this tournament had Leyline of the Void, Chalice of the Void they had as well, extra copies of Blood Moon, things like this. So like usually people think that like the blue deck is the hard matchup for combo, right? Like the like Ragavan into like Counterspell must be the tough matchup for combo. But like it's relatively easy for you to beat that deck because Flusterstorm doesn't counter enchantments. So then it's like your like 0 mana counterspells versus their 2 mana counterspells. So like when you get into a big counter war on the key turn, like that's actually very beatable for you. I mean, obviously there are easier matchups in the format than Ragavan counterspell for your combo deck. But like relative to Scam, Murktide is a fairly easy matchup. Scam is just really, really hard when like half of their cards are just like lock pieces that totally stop you from winning, and the other half of their cards are like Thoughtseize 3/2 menace. Like that's so much more difficult for this deck to manage. So overall, I wouldn't recommend this deck for like a really big competitive tournament, because you expect that you're going to be playing against Scam like quite a lot. Like in the Pro Tour Lord of the Rings, the Scam deck was like at least 20% of the metagame, I think, and it's, if that event was held again tomorrow, I think that proportion will probably be even higher. But at a sort of like small local event, right, people don't always have the ability to keep their lists up to date with all the new stuff all the time. They can't afford to buy like 4 Bowmaster for their new modern deck after the new set comes out or whatever. So like you play against a bit of like random stuff or decks that don't need all the new cards, and against that sort of metagame, I think this deck is really strong. Like it's very consistent at killing on like turn 3 or 4. It's just exploitable because it's like interactable by so many different things. So yeah, it can be okay versus a metagame that's not prepared for it, but I think at the top level of Modern right now is not what you want to be doing. Some people have tried a version of this Underworld Breach combo that is like basically purely blue-red, I think, and it plays the One Ring, because of course when you have all these untap effects in your deck, you can untap the One Ring to chain a bunch of card draw with it. And you know, these decks, you can, if you can play like Hidden Strings and you untap your Lotus Field and your One Ring, so it's like mana plus card draw, which is pretty ridiculous. So I think that deck does make you better versus Scam, because you have so many, well, not so many more, but you have access to more cards that are individually strong top decks if you have One Ring in your list. But it makes you slightly slower and more clunky versus everything else. So, I mean, I don't exactly know if that's correct overall in this metagame. You know, it might be. But yeah, I'm probably not going to spend time figuring that out. I guess I might for the regional championships, because it would be Modern, right? It's the same format that you qualify for it. So I guess I'll put a little bit of effort into figuring out if like Lotus plus Ring is enough better versus Scam and still strong versus everything else that I would consider playing it. But yeah, I don't have any opinion on that right now, so for today you just have to take a look at this older version of the deck. Yeah, still strong, but probably not the best choice for the meta at the moment. So that's it for today. This has been Live ITCG with Modern Lotus Breach combo. Signing out.